always interested why folks who tend to be hyper suspicious of institutions of the government tend to be so lenient and compliant. If you did nothing wrong and a police officer asked you, show me your ID, and you said, no, I legally don't have to show you my ID, and you were rude, does that justify putting you in handcuffs and taking you to jail?
Ruslan.
Don't let something like this divide us. This is something that should be as clear as day. Here's what legally transpired. And even if we may disagree on some of the particulars, we should be generally like, hey, this was bad. There was a pastor in Alabama who was in his mid-50s that was watering his neighbor's flowers. Another neighbor called the cops on him, and they came and arrested him.
He was watering the flowers because the people that lived there were out of town, and they actually asked him to take care of the plants while they were out of town.
I'm not hurling accusations against anyone or anything, but this is a wild story.
So the police arrive at the property, and then this is them approaching the pastor.
What you doing here, man? Are they saying that? Is that your vehicle? No. It's not? It's the neighbor's vehicle. The neighbor's?
314, I'll be on 13.
Okay. You live here?
No, I don't live here.
Okay. They saying that this vehicle is not supposed to be here and you're not supposed to be here?
Who's saying it?
They called about it. I don't know who called.
I'm supposed to be here. I'm Pastor Jennings. I live across the street.
You're Pastor Jennings?
Yeah.
That's an important note.
Mm-hmm.
Who are you? Did he even ask you who are you?
No.
He just said, I'm Pastor Jennings. I live across the street.
That's why they got them.
Okay.
Why they fly?
Okay. Well, that's cool. Now, do you have like ID and all?
No, man. I'm not going to give you no ID.
Why not?
I ain't did nothing wrong.
Well, look, listen, I'm not saying do nothing wrong.
Doc, listen,
There's a suspicious person.
Look, I used to be a police officer.
So now it's escalating to give me your ID. And if you listen carefully to what he says is, I used to be a police officer. He's watering a neighbor's lawn, another neighbor, flowers, another neighbor calls the police, and they approach him, and he identifies himself, and then they ask him, can you show ID? And he says, no, I used to be a police officer. This is when he's getting agitated. Probably because he used to be a police officer. He knows his rights.
Yeah.
And you looked it up, and in the state of Alabama,
Yep.
What is the law?
When you are on private property and not suspected of any crime, you are not required to show ID if a police officer asks you to. On private property.
Legally speaking,
He's not.
he does not have to show ID.
And he's not suspected of a crime. They're just curious.
I'm always interested why folks who tend to be hyper suspicious of institutions of the government, of the central bank, of the FBI, of right?
Yeah.
Tend to be so lenient and compliant with police officers being able to pull up and just demand you show ID with no probable cause. Some of you guys are so riled up about every other institution. The CDC is lying to you. There's the central bank's lying to you, all these different things. But yet you demand someone who legally doesn't have to comply to comply. Why should he have to comply?
Yeah, and for me, I mess with the police. I like the idea. Even when I was younger, I wanted to be a police officer because I like the idea of whatever. But when you go down the logical rabbit hole of like, oh, if I don't trust government, the police are really just an extension of whatever current administration is happening. Mm-hmm. So when it's a Republican administration, you know, there's an extension of that. If it's a Democratic administration, they're an extension of that.
Yep.
But they're always an extension of the current government and the government in a whole. So if there ever was a scenario where the Constitution was being violated, let's say, especially for like more right-leaning folks, the Second Amendment, and they want to go grab your guns, Biden and Kamala Harris are not pulling up to your house grabbing your guns. It's the police. It's your local police.
It's the police.
So, and they're like, everyone knows the term police state. So it's like, why are we so easy to be like supporting the police?
Just comply, bro.
Yeah, just comply, bro. Because there is a level of like, I understand that it's an individual person. They probably went in this to serve their community and all that.
Right.
But at the end of the day, when they are overstepping their bounds, we shouldn't be encouraging people to comply with the police state, especially if you're someone that claims to lean more right.
Absolutely. And maybe he didn't have his ID on him.
Yeah.
What if he didn't have his ID on him? What if he was... Who walks around with their ID when they're going across the street to water flowers?
Yeah. And he's like in sweatpants, you know, he's in like day clothes.
Yeah. Let's play the rest.
Look, man, don't do this to me. There's a suspicious person in the yard, and if you're not one to identify yourself...
I don't have to identify myself. It's not a stop and identify state. That guy know me. He came to my store that got broke in. I live right over there across the street. Who called y'all?
That's what we got to figure out. But
Y'all,
first,
who called? Is there a black man
He
out
don't
here
live here.
warning his neighbor problem? You think
I'm not
doing
saying
something
nothing
illegal?
about-
You have no right to approach me if I ain't did nothing suspicious or nothing wrong. Told him I'm a pastor. I pastor until I don't leave. You want to lock me up? Lock me up. Nobody wants to lock
And so pause it. So at this point, this is I know some of you guys don't like to understand the historical context. This is a black man in his 50s in Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
Now, was it Alabama that didn't legalize interracial marriage until 1999? Alabama did not legalize interracial marriage until the year 2000.
Wait, what?
My wife is black, fam.
I was born already, and I'm not. I don't get anything in the history books except for 9/11.
So crazy. So yes, there's a cultural component to what's happening. Yes, there's context to what's happening. Yes, he's frustrated. Wouldn't you be frustrated? If you served as a police officer, you were a pastor, you were doing a good deed for your neighbor who was out of town by watering their flowers, and someone comes up to you and demands you to show ID, and you know you legally don't have to show ID.
And he's a police officer.
He was a police officer.
So he's like explaining.
I've already identified myself. I live over there.
Yeah.
No, show me your ID. For what? Why?
On private property. And then
Why? I'm not doing anything wrong.
police state vibes.
Police state vibes. Everyone's, police, police states. It's hypocrisy in the process. This shouldn't divide us, fam. This shouldn't divide us. This is clear cut. Clear cut as day. You could say this is an agenda to defund. That ship has sailed. 67% of black people don't want to defund the police. 67%. You can watch my interview with Sho Baraka. Most black folks don't want to defund the police. Most black folks in inner cities ain't like, yeah, let's get rid of the police. That's a great idea.
Yeah.
No one's on that. That's a stupid idea by the Democrats. We laughed them out of the room. Black, white, Democrat, liberal. Everybody was like, dumb, next. Stupid.
Stupid. I'm not going to let you get the chance.
So they call the cops on this guy. Let's play the rest of the clip.
I'm going to continue to water these flowers. I don't care who called y'all. Lock me up and see what happens. I want you to.
Hey, man, just come here and talk to us.
I'm
What?
going to water these back flowers.
Stop.
At this point, he's calling the owners of the house,
Yep.
and he's trying to get them to verify that.
Yeah.
I hate to be this guy, but there is definitely a Karen involved in this situation.
It's in
It's in this clip.
Yeah, they're gonna show it.
And we're gonna see the Karen involved. You don't. So this is now the interview
Yep.
with this Alabama pastor. And please, guys, don't be one of them weirdos that like, I went and looked up his theology and he's not a Calvinist. He's a liberal. Don't be that goober. We're not talking about theology. I know nothing about this guy. I don't know anything about the churchy pastors. Just generally speaking, this should be something that we all unify against and say, this is wrong.
The pastor was eventually put in the back of a squad car. A woman soon arrives on scene, identifies herself as a neighbor, and vouches for Pastor Jennings.
He lives right there, and he would be watering their flowers. And he would be watering their flowers. This is probably my fault.
This is probably my fault. At that moment, help me understand. Mr. Pro-Police, anti-police state. Help me understand how the reasonable, logical thing to do in this situation is to let that man of God out of handcuffs and let him go right there and apologize to him. How is that not the reasonable course of action for any sensible, logical, linear, reasonable person?
Yeah, it's reasonable. I would say it's reasonable.
How is that not reasonable? Remove the politics. Remove any of the nonsense. Fam, this should not divide us.
She says she is the one who made the initial call to police.
So you called not because of the car, but because you thought someone saw someone besides him.
Right, I didn't know it was him.
Yeah, I got to keep their flowers watered. I got to keep their flowers watered while they down. You okay?
Pause it. You're okay. It's a real man of God.
That's generous.
You're okay, sis. It's all right. He's smiling.
super
He's in
generous.
handcuffs, smiling. Oh, you okay? Really? Really?
Because really, it's not okay. Like, if you see someone watering plants, you should just go up to them and say, hey, are you, did Steve and the lady ask you to water the plants? Oh, yeah, I'm Pastor Jennings. Oh, Pastor Jennings, I didn't recognize you from across the street. All right, cool. Just making sure that everything's all right. Right? Like even if you are concerned and you're genuine concern, don't you just walk up? If they're not acting crazy, they don't look like they're on drugs. That, you know what I'm saying? They're not like, it's not like a homeless person just wigged out in the middle in the front yard.
Right.
It's like someone watering plants. I'd be like, if I'm looking out for my neighbor, just be like, drive up. Oh, hey, Pastor Jennings. Sorry, I just didn't notice from 6 blocks away.
Yeah, she should have at least drove around at the very least. But at the same time, the police dropped the ball here. The police completely dropped the ball.
Yeah, police dropped the ball. I'm saying, but he went above board saying it's okay to her.
Yeah.
Because that's kind of crazy.
That's kind of crazy.
It was kind of surreal at that moment because I'm wondering, why is this happening? I was thinking if I did something wrong or resisted, that I could have been shot. So I was trying to cooperate, even though I didn't understand what was going on. I was agitated. I was angry, but I knew to comply.
Pause it.
56-year-old.
I knew to comply. Now, some of you guys are like, there's no racism. There's no race involved. I'm not saying those police officers were racist in the sense that they dislike black people. That is not the argument I'm making. There's more than a reasonable amount that he is being extra careful, and he was extra careful. But if you think that there is no component of how black men have been personified in media that plays into people's approach to this. And I'm going to ask you guys a question here in a second, right? But 2 extreme examples. How would this have played out if this was a younger black man who moved to this suburb in Alabama from a rough part of Atlanta or a rough part of the side of Chicago, who had a different disposition, who had a different tone, who wasn't a pastor?
I don't know.
How would that have played out? It could have played out really different. The fact that this guy was an ex-police officer, and you guys are like, he didn't do enough, he should have just showed ID. What if he didn't have ID on him?
Yeah.
What if he didn't have ID?
Even if you would perceive his behavior as rude or dismissive of the police officers, he's still not required to by law, and the officers have a duty to fulfill the law, regardless of how it makes them feel. So if they feel disrespected, it doesn't matter.
If you are in a position of authority over people, you have to be the most responsible, level-headed person in a situation.
Yep.
That is a reasonable thought. So if he is being rude, some of you guys said he's being rude. Okay. Let's just say he is being rude.
Mm-hmm.
If you did nothing wrong and a police officer asked you, show me your ID, and you said, no, I legally don't have to show you my ID, and you were rude, you were mean, you wagged your finger at that cop, does that justify that cop putting you in handcuffs and taking you to jail?
No, definitely not.
Can we all agree that that doesn't justify it?
Yeah, definitely not.
You racial profile?
We're not racial profile.
Yes, you did.
No, sir. No, sir. We're not about that.
I told you I was here watering the flowers.
How do I know that's the truth?
Because I had the water hose in my hand.
Throughout the video,
he said, I told you I was here watering the flowers. And he says, how are we supposed to know if that's true? He said, I had a water hose in my hand and I was watering the flowers. That's how you know it's true.
This is an objectively, legally speaking, the police officers were wrong. Case closed, period. Legally, they dropped all the charges. They dropped all the charges. The woman came out, said he was, right? Any human, any sensible human person should be able to objectively look at this and say, this is wrong. The police were out of line. Black, white, Asian, it doesn't matter. This is wrong. 55-year-old man is put in handcuffs and arrested for watering his neighbor's flowers.
police can be heard suggesting that the situation might have been different if Jennings had provided identification.
It doesn't matter if pastor or if he's a pastor or not. Like, the thing is, he seems like a nice enough, reasonable guy. Just talk to us, man.
Alabama law allows police to ask someone for identification in a public place if they reasonably suspect that person of committing a crime.
To be shackled and to have your freedom taken away from you, you know, it's something else. It's dehumanizing. And I thought, you know, why would they be doing this? It's something that it gives you nightmares. It gives you nightmares after.
Jennings maintains there was no crime, given he was on private property with permission.
The neighbor, a white woman, they took her word as the gospel truth. But the pastor who preached the gospel every Sunday, he didn't take his word at all.
Man, with
The pastor was charged with 1 count of obstruction of government operation. That charge was later dropped. For now, Jennings Pastor Jennings says he's leaning on his faith.
My faith has helped me a lot because I knew that God would work the situation out. You have to forgive people because, you know, you can't judge people and hold things against people.
Pastor does say plans to file a lawsuit. Police department say they have no comment on this because of pending litigation.
I think he should sue the bejesus out of this entire department.
But what if there's a Christian in the department and the Bible tells us not to sue other Christians?
Sue that police department. Run it up, fam.
Yeah.
Remove the racial component. This could have happened to a white man.
Go out there and get that kids ministry expansion on the church building that you always wanted.
Come on.
Let's go.
Make an example out of this department. Not every story goes viral, by the way. These stuff happens. And even the times when it does happen, a lot of y'all be silent on this. You know what I mean? You can't let this sort of stuff slide. You make an example out of that police department. Tell me how I'm being unreasonable. I really want to know. How am I being unreasonable? Yeah, and by the way, if you guys wonder why this stuff frustrates me, a couple reasons. One, because out of the 8-9 funerals I've been to, two of them have been to of black men who were unarmed, killed by the police. No, all those stories don't go viral. No, everyone doesn't get turned into a hashtag. Okay. So out of the 8 funerals I've been to, 25% of them have been of black unarmed men that I personally knew that that had interactions with police and were killed. Second, my wife is black. My father-in-law is black. Yes, this affects me. I've seen this stuff firsthand. I've seen my friends racially profiled. And yes, I know you're not used to hearing Christians talk about this because if you, God forbid you say this, oh, Ruslan is a woke liberal. Instead of just calling it for what it is. This is wrong. This is wrong. Period.
Yeah.
Case closed. Run it up. He's $5 million. Easy.
$5 million?
Easy.
No. I love
$5
this dude.
million.
I mean, no, that's probably under $1 million, under 100,000 for sure.
No. At least $1 million.
No.
At least $1 million.
No, people get $1 million for doing like a year in prison for a crime they didn't do.
The folks that talk the most about accountability be the folks that never want the police departments to be held accountable.
Oof.
The folks that want the most about accountability never want people in power misbehaving to be held accountable. I am not a Democrat. I don't think defund the police was a good idea. I don't think abolish the police was a good idea. I did not vote for Biden. Okay? So miss me with that. You're a loony, lefty liberal. I am not on that time or energy. What should they have done upon arrival? Oh, you're Pastor so-and-so? You live across the street? All right. Have a nice day, sir.
Yep.
We're going to get out of here.
Yep. Sounds good.
That's it. They could have said, goodbye. Have a good day. They could have said, can you call the owner and verify? They could have said that.
Yep.
Okay. They could have unhandcuffed him when the freaking woman, when the Karen and yes, I'm using that word Karen intentionally. When the Karen that called the cops on this man pulled up and said, oh, my bad. And he's like, oh, you okay? They could have uncuffed him then. I don't know if they should be fired in that situation. I really don't know. I don't know what consequence should be for the police, but something. Should be something. If this is a white 55-year-old pastor, would he have been treated the same way? If it was this guy they pulled up on, shout out Andy Stanley. If this was this guy they pulled up on, Andy Stanley, white guy, this is 3-4 hours away from Atlanta, and they pulled up on this guy wearing the same exact outfit, having given him the same exact answers with the same exact demeanor. Would they would they have been treated the same?
And he's in the same region, correct?
He's in the same region.
Yeah. I don't know.
I don't know. With the sheer grace and the dignity that he went through this situation with, being humiliated, being put in handcuffs, still being taken to the police station, still being booked and arrested, and then not having the charges dropped until a month later.
Oof.
Oh, yeah, run it up, fam. Run the numbers up.
And it said that Simeon blessed God.